Good morning. Today's presentation is around demystifying story mapping. Just to introduce ourselves or myself, I'm the founder of the BA Knowledge Share group on Facebook, and I blog at the BA Knowledge Share website. And I just wanted to put a plug in there. Next event is scheduled on Sunday, on the 22nd of November, on why should BAs care about product canvases. So feel free to sign up on my Facebook page. What will be covered in today's agenda is what is story mapping, why use user story mapping, and steps to creating a user story map. Just before we get started, just wanted to kind of illustrate this cake. It's a website called cakerack.com, which is kind of defunct right now. But this kind of illustrates what a good requirement is and what a bad story is. So when we talk about Agile, a good requirement is basically this person or this cake maker took the order for to put happy birthday Peter on the cake, but ended up putting nuts allergy on it as well. So they could have very well heard the customer say, can you put on the cake, and this person has a nuts allergy, happy birthday Peter. So without actually questioning the requirement itself, this person or the cake maker just took that as a requirement and put that on the cake. So this ends up for a bad story because that's not what the customer has or had requested as an outcome. So I'm sure there was some conversation with the cake maker and the customer once this cake was delivered. So just wanted to highlight this and how this ties into the story mapping is that the story mapping would never have a cake maker produce a cake like that, because a story mapping basically processes out what the user wants with the whole team involved. So what is user story mapping? Story mapping is a method used specifically on Agile teams for arranging stories to create a more holistic view of how they fit in the overall user experience. So it's almost like you're taking a process that the user goes through and you're mapping it out. You're not just mapping it out, but you're breaking down um, what it looks like for a customer in terms of the product. So as an example, think about your morning routine, right? So what is your morning routine? You wake up on time, at a specific time, you brush your teeth. So those are kind of your steps that you perform as you move along your morning routine. The second one is think about a customer who wants to purchase your product online. And it could be very well be an artist who wants to sell his products or his artwork online. So what are the steps that a customer of the artist would need to go through in order to purchase art or artwork? Why use a story mapping? It makes life simpler, according to Jeff Patton. Jeff Patton's written an interesting book around user story mapping that I would highly recommend that you guys read if you do want to delve a little bit deeper into story mapping. There are specific false assumptions that are made. One is that the customer knows what he or she wants. The customer may want everything, right? So do they does it really make sense for them to have everything all at once? So we go in with false assumptions, thinking that the customer knows what he wants, and that's basically the single source of what the deliverable should be. Developers know how to build, and there won't be any changes. There will be changes for sure when you go through this process. Does the team understand the flow, the relationships between each component, know that your backlog is complete, and context for prioritization? How good are we at predicting what customers want? We're only 7% always sure that we know what the customers want. We, as in the people that deliver, create products. 45% actually, more so. Everything else other than 7% is basically we don't really know what the customer wants, and that's what it's saying with this pie chart. Some of the prerequisites for a story mapping session are you need to identify the stakeholders. Typically, you'll have a product owner, a BA, a scrum master, developers, QA, and your customer, right? So that's important to have your customer there. You will have had created your product canvas to establish features and personas, and also to understand the scope. You can use tools such as Miro, Cardboard, Visio, etc., or Excel to kind of map out the story virtually, as we all live in this virtual world. This is a sample story map. I've seen story maps that are a lot more bigger, that have a lot bigger layout on walls. But ideally, going back to that same example, you search products, the user will compare products, shopping cart, manage account, and pay and ship. So that's kind of your backbone if you look at it going from left to right. And that is basically representative of a narrative flow within time. And going from top to bottom is your prioritization and your variations in terms of what ifs and what abouts. You basically use this exercise to determine what is your minimum viable product, which is what will go in the first sprint. What does the customer actually, what's a must have for this customer? So it kind of dives into the prioritization. 3 simple steps to building a successful story map is to basically document your activities. So you can pull up a Word document and start typing in, well, what are the activities that a user does? And just kind of serialize it by time and document it that way. Step 2 is to build a story map you want to affinitize, right? So you want to categorize the chunks of activity. So in this case, there were a bunch of activities in the search products, right? And so you as a BA, or if you're working with a PO, you kind of determine what are your higher level chunks of work, which could end up being epics or features for that matter. And you kind of categorize those chunks of work. The third step here is you break down subtasks under each group. You identify the minimum viable product and releases. Once again, dependencies for that is what does your customer want? What's must have for your customer? And 2 is what is the effort involved? So in that case, in this activity, step 3, you would kind of document your definitions of done, your business goals, as well as your estimates, if you can. And then you would assign your user stories. The MVP formula, which is important in Agile, consists of the user story maps plus the business goals plus the first release. Now, story maps that we just went through consists of business goals as well as identifying the first release. So in order to get to the MVP, it becomes critical to understand or to go through the process of creating a story map. That being said, if there are questions, feel free to reach out to me at baknowledgeshare@gmail.com. Please visit our Facebook group at Business Analysis Knowledge Share. And please visit my website or my blog at baknowledgeshare.wordpress.com, where I publish articles weekly. As mentioned earlier, there's a reference book by Jeff Patton called User Story Mapping. I would highly recommend you guys reading it. There's some really good examples on how and what he's done in his story mapping sessions. Sign up for the next event. Why should BAs care about product canvases? Scheduled for Sunday, November 22nd, that's the week of Thanksgiving at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.